You come in on a Monday, coffee in hand, and half the company can't log in. One compromised laptop last night, and the attacker hopped around your network like it was an open floor plan. Finance, HR, a test database you didn't know was still exposed. It's a rough way to start the week. Here's the quiet shift that matters in 2025. A growing number of enterprises aren't living with that old moat and castle risk anymore. They're switching to zero trust, not as a buzzword, but as the standard way to operate. So, what changed? Why is zero trust now treated as the baseline and not a nice to have? Let's start simple. Zero trust is a mindset and an architecture built on one idea. Don't assume anything is safe just because it sits on your network. Treat every request, every user, device, and application access as potentially risky. Then verify it in context every time. In other words, you stop handing out master keys. You check the badge at every door with a quick scan of who are you, what device are you on, and does this make sense right now? Let that sink in for a second. The shift isn't more walls, it's smarter doors. What pushed this from theory to baseline? 3 things. First, hybrid everything. Your users are in offices, at home, on mobile. Your apps live in data centers, multiple clouds, and SaaS. There's no single perimeter anymore. The old model, inside is safe, outside is dangerous, just doesn't map to real life. Second, attackers leaned into identity and lateral movement. They phish credentials, land on one machine, and move quietly across flat internal networks. That's why so many incidents feel like dominoes. Once they're inside, the defenses thin out. Third, 2025 brought a clearer playbook and stronger pressure to use it. NIST's latest implementation guidance shows what real deployments look like, not just diagrams. Insurers and boards now ask, how are you verifying access and limiting blast radius? It's becoming part of the definition of reasonable security. So let's slow that down for a second. Zero trust isn't magic. It's a practical response to the world we operate in. Distributed, cloud-first, identity-driven. Here's how to think about it without getting lost in jargon. Zero trust boils down to 3 questions, asked every time someone or something requests access. Who are you? That's identity. It includes strong authentication like multi-factor and sensible permissions, also known as least privilege. What are you using? That's device posture. Is your laptop patched? Is your phone compliant? Is the server agent healthy? Does this make sense right now? That's context and behavior. Are you logging in from a new location? Is the data pull unusual? Does the session suddenly look risky? If the answer checks out, access is granted, usually just to the one app or resource you asked for. If risk increases, the system can step up checks or cut the session off. And even when access is granted, it's not a free hallway pass. Inside the network, microsegmentation creates smaller zones so an attacker can't move freely. Think of a castle with no moat. Every room has a door with a smart lock, and the guard asks quick questions each time. It's a bit more work at the door, but it prevents a fire from spreading to the whole building. Now, what's different in 2025 is the maturity of this approach. A few years ago, zero trust lived in slide decks. Today, we have reference architectures, working demos, and real case studies that show it running across on-prem, cloud, and SaaS with multiple vendors. It's not theory anymore, and the benefits are concrete. It shrinks the blast radius. Compromise one laptop, you still can't move everywhere. It makes remote and third-party access safer. You don't need to hand out broad VPN access when you can grant app-level access with conditions. It's easier to audit. Centralized policies and logs show who accessed what and why. Handy for compliance and for explaining risk posture to leadership. Here's what actually matters here. Zero trust isn't a product. It's a way to design and operate your security. You can buy tools, sure, but the win comes from how those tools work together. Let's get into the moving parts, lightly. First, identity. This is the control plane. You consolidate identity providers, enforce strong authentication, and actively right-size permissions. For sensitive work, you might use just-in-time access, temporary elevation that expires fast, with a record of the session. Second, device health. Before and during access, you check that devices meet your standards. Think patches, endpoint protection, and basic configuration. If a device falls out of compliance mid-session, access can change on the fly. Third, network and application access. Microsegmentation limits east-west traffic, so only the necessary paths are open. And instead of trusting a network location, You're on the VPN, so you're fine. You gate access at the application level with policies that reflect what the user actually needs. Fourth, continuous monitoring and automation. Telemetry, your logs, signals, and alerts, feeds a policy engine. If risk climbs, the system can ask for another factor, revoke a token, isolate a device, or kick off a response workflow. Humans still steer the ship, but software handles the quick reflexes. That's a lot, so here's the digest. In Zero Trust, access decisions are dynamic. They consider who you are, what you're using, and whether the behavior makes sense. And the network stops being a single safe bubble. It becomes a set of smaller, well-guarded rooms. Now, why is this the enterprise standard in 2025? Beyond the threats and the hybrid sprawl, there's a governance shift. Regulators and insurers increasingly look for evidence of continuous verification and least privilege. NIST's model gave everyone a common language. Recent implementation guides made it practical. For security leaders, this aligns incentives. You can explain Zero Trust to the board in business terms. Less lateral movement, faster containment, fewer all-hands incidents. That narrative lands better than a list of tools. It's not all sunshine, though. There are risks and trade-offs. Complexity. Retrofitting a legacy environment takes work. You might uncover dusty systems no one owns. Policies can get messy if you try to do it all at once. Usability. Too restrictive settings break workflows. If developers get blocked mid-deploy, they'll find workarounds. Policy needs analytics behind it, so it adapts rather than frustrates. Interoperability. One vendor for everything looks simple, but lock-in can limit flexibility. A multi-vendor approach supports resilience, but it takes clearer architecture and more care with integration. So, let's slow that down. The danger isn't Zero Trust is hard. The danger is a big bang rollout that creates policy debt. Lots of exceptions and shadow rules that nobody fully understands. That's brittle. Attackers are great at finding the cracks. Here's what stands out for teams in this space. Start where identity and access are messy. Admin accounts, third-party contractors, remote support tools. Cleaning those up can reduce risk quickly without ripping up your network. Replace broad VPN tunnels with app-level access when you can. It's a gentler, safer step than trying to redesign your entire network on day one. Microsegment your crown jewels first. Finance systems, source code repos, industrial control systems. Segmenting high-value areas gives outsized risk reduction. Invest in telemetry early. Good logs make good policies. Without visibility, Zero Trust can be either too noisy or too lax. Measure outcomes, not just deployments. Are you seeing fewer excessive privileges, faster detection, shorter containment times? Those are signs it's working. Let's make it concrete with an everyday scenario. You've got a vendor who needs access to your ticketing system. Old world, they get VPN access to a whole subnet. New world, they log in with their identity provider, pass a device health check, and get access only to that app for a limited time. If their behavior looks off, access tightens automatically. In other words, helpful for them, safer for you. Where is this going next? Expect more risk-adaptive policy, using machine learning to spot patterns and tune access in real time. Expect secure access services delivered from the cloud to be more tightly integrated with Zero Trust controls. And expect more attention on operational technology, manufacturing lines, logistics, building systems, where micro-segmentation can prevent a small glitch from becoming a big outage. That's the trajectory. But the core idea won't change. Assume breach, verify continuously, and limit the damage when something slips through. If you're exploring this space, here are a few practical takeaways. Consider identity as your anchor. Consolidating identity systems and getting multi-factor right often unlocks everything else. It's a high-leverage place to start. Map a handful of critical transaction flows. Not everything, just the paths that matter most. Who needs what, from where, and under which conditions. Policies get a lot cleaner when they mirror reality. Phrase policies in business terms. Finance analysts can access the ledger from managed devices during business hours. That's clearer than allow 10.0.024 to port 443. Clarity helps security and the business stay aligned. Pilot with a willing team. Pick a group that wants the outcome. Better remote access, fewer VPN headaches, and co-design the controls. Early wins build momentum. Plan for exception handling. You'll have edge cases. A fast, documented exception path keeps people productive without poking permanent holes in your model. Keep the humans in the loop. Automation is great for routine decisions. But when risk is high or context is unclear, hand off to analysts with enough context to decide. And one more mindset note: zero trust isn't a finish line. Threats change. Your business changes. Your model should evolve too. Think of it as a continuous service you run, not a project you complete. Here's the thing: zero trust has momentum now because it aligns security with how modern organizations work. People are everywhere. Apps are everywhere. Trust has to be earned, briefly, and in context, and then re-earned. It sounds strict, but done well, it feels smooth. Most checks are invisible. The experience can actually improve because access is granted based on who you are and what you need, not whether you're plugged into the right wall. If you're on a leadership team, the story you can tell is straightforward. We're reducing the chance that one machine turns into a whole company incident. We know who has access to what, and we can prove it. We're building a model that supports cloud and remote work without trading away safety. That's a compelling position with boards, regulators, and yes, insurers who now look for these controls as signs of maturity. A quick word on vendors and stacks. Single-vendor platforms can accelerate you, especially if your team is small. Multi-vendor architectures can give you flexibility and resilience, especially across hybrid environments. Both paths can succeed. The differentiator tends to be clarity, clear policies, clear data flows, and clear ownership. If you have that, the tooling has a better chance of working together. And yes, there will be surprises. A legacy app that can't speak modern auth. An integration that's chatty and breaks when you segment it. That's normal. The value of a phased approach, often called crawl, walk, run, is that you learn cheaply. You fix policies with a scalpel, not a sledgehammer. So, stepping back. Why does this matter now? Because zero trust has crossed the line from concept to expectation. Guidance from standards bodies gives it shape. Real deployments prove it out across complex hybrid environments. And stakeholders outside security, boards, auditors, partners, are adopting it as the baseline for responsible operations. If you're already on the journey, you probably feel that shift. If you're not, the gap tends to show up first in insurance costs, audit fatigue, and the occasional messy incident that takes longer to contain than anyone wants to admit. In other words, zero trust isn't just better security. It's a way to keep pace with how your business runs and how your risk is judged. That's the story for now. If you found this useful, a like and subscribe helps us keep making these videos.